In Ireland, thousands of people are suffering from addiction, and in 2008, Frances Black, much-loved Irish singer, started the Rise Foundation, and she's here to tell us a little bit about it and a brand new book that she's just put together. Frances, it's so lovely to have you with us.
Thanks very much, Olive. Thank you.
So tell us how the Rise Foundation came about.
Well, I suppose my own story, I've spoken very openly about my own recovery from addiction. But I'm very passionate about addiction in Ireland, and I suppose just creating awareness around it. But I decided the best way what to do is to go back and educate myself about it and learn as much as I could. So I went back to college, became an addiction counsellor, and ended up working in a wonderful treatment centre in Dublin called the Rutland. And I trained there, and then they kind of kept me on as a locum, which was an amazing experience. But I suppose I loved working with those who were in recovery from addiction, and but it was there that I met the families who were really lost, I suppose, even though, you know, there's a programme up there, but I just felt they needed something separate away from the person in addiction, their own recovery. I felt they needed their own recovery because they got very lost and were frightened, and what do we do and where do we go and how do we manage it and all of that. So I suppose that was where the inspiration came. The inspiration came from just meeting the families, and I would have met family members at gigs who would have kind of come up to me afterwards and asked me, where do I get help for my loved one, and you know, you see the heartache in them. So I just thought they needed their own recovery away from their loved one, because there is support out there for anybody who wants to step into recovery from addiction. But I just felt they needed their own recovery. So that's why I set it up.
So the Rise Foundation essentially is to support the families of people.
Only the families.
Only the families.
We don't actually run programs to support those who are in addiction, but we refer them on. It's not that we don't care about them, we do, because I know myself what it's like, but I do think there are great organisations out there who can support them and who can help them. But for us, we just focus on the family. Yeah.
And for anybody who might be interested in coming along or would be delighted to hear that there's that facility out there, talk us through, you know, an average day at the Rise Foundation.
An average day at the Rise Foundation, my God.
There isn't one, probably.
Well, there is, and I guarantee you it's busy, busy, busy. We have a lot of families connecting in with us, ringing us on a daily basis, or emailing us, or registering online with us, because you can register online with us if you're interested in doing one of our programs. But mostly you have family members ringing us, so the phones are going all day. And we have people in the office who are answering the phones and talking through with the person. But really, I suppose it's about our programs, and in actual fact our programs will be starting up this week. Okay. But because we don't have a huge amount of resources and we are a charity, I'd love to have nationwide programs, because we get calls from all over the country, from the north, from Antrim right over to Donegal, down Mayo, Galway, Sligo, all the way down to Limerick, all the way, and right around Cork, Waterford, the whole lot up to Wexford. So, and all the Midlands as well. I mean, we're just inundated actually. But at least we can give them an ear. You know, sure. At least we can, if somebody's ringing up and they're heartbroken about their loved one, at least we can talk them through and listen to them. And sometimes even that can be so beneficial, to be heard for the first time, to have somebody who understands what it's like, the heartache, the devastation, the anger that they might feel, to have somebody at the end of the phone who understands what that's like for them and give them a small bit of guidance. But unfortunately we don't have programs that go around the country. But I mean, our programme that we run is just really, really busy at the moment. We have a waiting list, so it's very busy.
And the programme itself, if you are on the programme, is it, you know, to come once a week, every day?
Yeah, it's one night a week. Well, there's a couple of things that you do. For our 10-week family programme, it's on a Tuesday night or a Friday night, and you come and you get your lectures. It'll be all facilitated by experienced counsellors. So you come and you get your lecture, which is from 7 to 8, and then it goes into group therapy. And this is where the real work, because it's the first time the family members are talking about their own heartache, you know, and their own pain and their own anger and their frustration, and they can all identify with each other, but it is facilitated by 2 counsellors.
And the stigma that is attached to addiction for a family member is crazy in Ireland.
It's bad for the person, the individual, but it's even worse, I think, for family members. And it's harder for family members to ask for help, because somewhere in all of the chaos, I suppose, there's this little voice in their head saying, is this my fault? And they take on a lot of the responsibility, and they think it's their fault, but it's not. But I think that's why there's so much stigma that people are afraid to ask for help. And I think that was why, for us, the Rise Week and the book and all of that was an awareness week to say, you're not on your own. There's, hundreds of thousands of people out there. I don't know a family in Ireland who doesn't know somebody, whether it's a grandparent or whether it's a neighbour or whether it's a cousin. Everybody in this country knows somebody who's had a problem with either alcohol or drugs or gambling or food or, whatever it might be, whatever addiction it might be. So we all know somebody. So in a way, it's just ingrained in us, and we can be a kind of an island in denial sometimes.
Absolutely. And the book itself is called You Are Not Alone, and that phrase in itself is a very powerful phrase, because people do feel when they're at home, they're alone, it's late at night, they feel alone.
Yeah, and like for a parent or parents, my mother and a father, it's like they feel the stigma, they feel the shame around it, they feel that they're the only ones in the world who might have a child, an adult child, who's in addiction, and it's scary and it's frightening, and they don't know where to go, and where do we go, and where do we get the help, and what do we do, and and they might do things that may be the wrong things, thinking they're doing the right things.
Sure.
So I think even that kind of stuff is very important for the family to learn how to cope with all of that. But it's really about coping with their own pain. That's what we do. That's where we come in.
And the book itself, essentially, it's been edited by yourself.
Yes,
and
that's right.
For people who haven't picked it up and haven't had a flick through yet, what's it all about?
Well, this book is personal stories of the impact of addiction on the individual, but also on the family. And we have had loads of people who've written stories, their story, about what it was like for them to have somebody that they love in addiction, the heartache, the emotions that come in, the powerlessness they might feel, but then an awful lot of them would have stepped into their own recovery. So they tell their story of their own recovery and the things that they did to cope and to deal with it and to get hope back into their lives, and things that they were inspired by. But really it's about them stepping into their own recovery and dealing with the situation. And there's some happy endings and not so happy endings. But the book also has stories from the likes of Ben Dunn and Paul McGrath and Jimmy McCarthy and Mary Coughlin and Oisin McConville and Rachel Keogh. They've all donated pieces about their own story, which has been, it takes a lot of courage to put your name to it. A lot of the other stories are not anonymous, but it still takes a lot of courage to write it. So so it's a really, really good read. If you have any interest at all in addiction, I would really encourage you to get the book, and it really does give you that kind of guide to know that there is a way of dealing with it. It's not an easy way, but it is a way, and there is people out there to support you.
Because I think there's a big difference between reading, one of the countless self-help books, which in a way, not to be negative, but tend to say the same thing in different ways. There's a big difference between reading that and reading personal stories from real people who've lived it and have come out the other side with a story to tell.
That's so true. I think people connect more when they hear people telling their own story, and they say, how did they cope and what did they do? And of course there's so many different stories in the book. Like you'll get it from a mother's point of view, a sister's point of view, a brother, a parent, whatever it might be, a husband, a wife. So, and then there's different addictions. So you'll have somebody who might be an alcoholic or drugs or food. There's a good few food stories where parents might be dealing with an anorexic daughter, or you might get somebody who's written about their story with having to deal with anorexia. So there's lots of different stories in it.
And addiction manifests itself in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
It's crazy. The proceeds of the book are going to the Rise Foundation.
Yeah, not all of the proceeds, but certainly a percentage of the proceeds goes to the Rise Foundation. So any profit that's made on the book will go to the Rise Foundation for sure.
Brilliant. Well, it's a super book.
It is great, and it was number 3 in the book charts.
Number 3,
so it was
no less.
In non-fiction. So we were very happy with that. So we're trying to keep it up there, just to keep the momentum going and to keep the awareness going as well.
Sure, and if people want to get their hands on the book, where can they find it?
They can get it in any of the major bookshops, Debray, Eason's, any of them. So yeah, it's in bookshops all over Ireland.
All over Ireland. Well, Frances, we thank you for telling us all about it. We wish you continued success with the Rise Foundation, and hopefully we'll get to #1 with the book.
Well, fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for telling us all about it and for being with us this evening.
Thank you very much. Lovely talking to you.
Frances Black there, and remember, if you want to get your hands on the book, it's called You Are Not Alone. It's in all good bookstores now and available on Amazon, and all the profits of the book are going to the Rise Foundation. And for more information on the Rise Foundation itself, log on to the website www.therisefoundation.ie. Now we're going to take a quick break. Still to come, we continue our look at Happy Heart Week with dietitian Janice Morrissey. That's in part 2. See you then.